I guess some moments in life just slap you right across the face. That's exactly what happened to me that Saturday morning. I was standing there, still dripping wet from the shower, towel around my waist, just about to grab my toothbrush, when I saw it. There it was, written right across the fogged-up mirror in big, loopy letters. Thank you for last night. At first, I just stood there like an idiot, staring at it. I thought maybe it was a joke. Maybe Sophie had written it for me as some kind of romantic surprise. We hadn't exactly been on fire lately, but maybe she was trying? For a second, I almost smiled. But then the feeling hit me. You know the one. That punch right to the gut, like the floor's been ripped out from under you. Because last night, I hadn't even been home. I had worked a double shift. Got home around 2 in the morning, too tired to even think straight. Crawled into bed without waking her. So who exactly was being thanked? I wiped my hand across the mirror, almost hoping the words would vanish. They didn't. I felt this slow, heavy chill creep down my spine. I turned around, half expecting Sophie to be standing there, laughing, telling me it was a prank. But she wasn't. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I wrapped the towel tighter around me and walked out into the bedroom. The bed was made. Perfectly. Like no one had slept in it at all. I checked my phone on the nightstand. No new messages from her. No missed calls. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I sat down on the edge of the bed, feeling like a complete fool. We had been married for 12 years. 12 years. High school sweethearts. We had a whole life together, 2 dogs, a mortgage, dinner at her mom's every Sunday. And now this. I'm not sure how long I sat there. Finally, I pulled myself together enough to start thinking clearly. Maybe there was another explanation. Maybe her sister had stayed over. Maybe it was some weird joke. I clung to that hope like a drowning man clings to driftwood. But deep down, I already knew. I got dressed quickly and started looking around the house. First thing I noticed? A wine glass in the sink. 2 of them, actually. Then a man's jacket thrown over the back of the dining room chair. It wasn't mine. Size large. Expensive brand. Tag still on it. My hands were shaking as I touched it, like somehow the jacket might bite me. Then I saw it. A hotel key card, peeking out of the jacket pocket. I pulled it out. Room 512. Hilton downtown. The date on the little paper sleeve was yesterday. My mind raced. 1,000 thoughts at once, none of them making much sense. Had she gone there? Had she brought someone back here? It didn't even matter, did it? Either way, it was betrayal. I sat back down, staring at that stupid key card like it might explain everything if I just looked hard enough. But it didn't. It just sat there in my hand, heavy and accusing. Finally, I stood up and did the one thing I knew I had to do. I grabbed my keys, grabbed my wallet, and left. The whole way to the Hilton, my heart pounded so loud I could barely think. I wasn't sure what I was even planning to do. Confront her? See if the key worked? Demand answers? I just knew I couldn't sit at home and pretend like nothing had happened. When I got to the hotel, I parked in a side lot and sat there for a while, engine running. Every fiber of me was screaming to turn around, to pretend I hadn't seen that writing on the mirror, to go home, take a shower, watch some football, and forget it. But I couldn't. I needed to know. I killed the engine and got out. The lobby was busy, tourists, business people, families, all living their happy little lives while mine was crumbling. I walked up to the front desk, trying to look casual. Hi, I'm meeting my wife here, I said. Room 512. Could you call up and tell her David's here? The girl at the desk smiled politely and picked up the phone. I waited, feeling like I might pass out. After a few moments, she set the receiver down. No answer, she said sweetly. Could I get a key? I asked, forcing a smile. She's probably just in the shower. I'm sorry, sir. For security reasons, I can't issue keys without ID and permission from the guest. Of course. I nodded and stepped away from the desk, my mind spinning. Now what? I spotted the elevator and made a decision. 5 minutes later, I was on the 5th floor, standing in front of room 512. I pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. I slid the key card into the lock. Green light. Click. The door swung open, and I stepped inside. The room smelled like cheap cologne and something worse, betrayal. The bed was a mess, covers thrown everywhere. A pair of heels on the floor. An open suitcase. And there, on the nightstand, was Sophie's necklace. The one I gave her on our 10th anniversary. I picked it up, my hands trembling. That's when I heard the shower running. Someone was in the bathroom. And it wasn't me. I backed out of the room slowly, my heart slamming against my ribs. I didn't want to know who it was. Not yet. I just knew that whoever they were, they had left their mark on my life. Just like the writing on that mirror. Standing there in the hallway, I felt like someone had just pulled the rug out from under me. The door to room 512 was still cracked open behind me. I could hear the shower running, the soft hum of water hitting tile. Whoever was inside had no idea that I was standing right there, battling every instinct not to just charge in. Instead, I forced myself to think. I turned and walked away, down the hall, past the elevators. I needed air, needed space, needed to think straight. I found a small lounge area near the vending machines and sat down hard on one of the couches. The fabric was worn, a little sticky from God knows what, but I didn't care. I buried my head in my hands and just breathed. My whole marriage was flashing in front of me like some terrible movie. Every memory, every anniversary, every "I love you" suddenly felt fake, like someone had swapped my real life with a bad knockoff. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the ugly carpet. Eventually, I realized I had to do something. Sitting there wasn't going to fix anything. I pulled out my phone and texted her. "Where are you?" Simple. Direct. I watched the screen. No response. 3 minutes. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. I clenched my jaw. Fine. I opened up the phone app, scrolled to Sophie, and hit call. Straight to voicemail again. I didn't leave a message. What was there to say? I pushed myself up off the couch and started pacing. I thought about barging into that bathroom and confronting whoever was in there. I thought about waiting in the hall and ambushing her when she came out. I even thought about calling the front desk and reporting suspicious activity just to get the hotel involved. But all those options felt wrong. I didn't want a scene. I wanted answers. Real ones. So I decided to wait. I found a spot near the elevators where I could see the door to 512 without being obvious. There was a big fake plant I could kind of hide behind. I leaned against the wall and settled in. And I waited. It took almost 20 minutes. Finally, the door opened. Sophie stepped out first. She looked different. Hair still damp from the shower. Makeup smudged. Wearing a simple black dress that looked hastily thrown on. She glanced up and down the hallway, like she was making sure the coast was clear. Then he stepped out behind her. Tall. Athletic build. Short dark hair. Maybe early 40s. Wearing jeans and a button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up like he thought he was in some kind of magazine shoot. I didn't recognize him. Not some old boyfriend. Not some friend from work I'd met at a Christmas party. Just some guy. He reached out and touched her lower back, steering her gently toward the elevators. Like she was his. Like she had never been mine. I stayed hidden behind my fake plant, every muscle in my body screaming to step out and confront them. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I watched. They waited for the elevator. She kept glancing nervously over her shoulder. He said something low, and she laughed. Laughed. Like she didn't have a care in the world. The elevator dinged. They stepped in. The doors slid shut. Gone. I stood there for a few minutes, heart pounding, mind racing. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I walked back to room 512. The door had almost closed but hadn't latched all the way. I pushed it open carefully and slipped inside. The shower was off now. The room was filled with steam. The bed was a mess. Clothes were strewn everywhere. His shoes. Her earrings on the nightstand. And there, on the desk, was something that made my stomach drop even further. A note, written on hotel stationery in Sophie's handwriting. Thanks for a perfect night. S. I stared at it, my fists clenching at my sides. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional. She cared about him. Enough to leave a note. Enough to say perfect. I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture of the note. Then another of the bed. Of the scattered clothes. Of everything. Evidence. Not because I was planning to go nuclear. Not yet. But because I knew myself. Knew there would come a moment when she'd sit across from me, tears in her eyes, swearing it meant nothing, that it was just a mistake. And I'd need to remember. I'd need to know I wasn't crazy. I slipped out of the room the same way I came in. Quiet. Invisible. I made my way back to my truck and sat behind the wheel, just breathing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, feeling like the world had shifted under my feet and I was sliding toward a cliff I couldn't stop. After a while, I turned the key, started the engine, and drove. I didn't go home. Not yet. I needed to think. Because whatever happened next, it wasn't going to be simple. And I sure as hell wasn't going to be the guy who pretended nothing had happened. Not after that note. Not after, thank you for last night. Not after her. Not anymore. I ended up at a diner about 20 minutes outside the city. One of those places where the coffee is always burnt, and the waitresses call you Han without even looking up from their notepads. It felt safe. It felt far away from room 512, from Sophie, from everything. I grabbed a booth in the back, ordered a black coffee, and just sat there, trying to slow my mind down. The pictures on my phone felt like they were burning a hole in my pocket. I could still see her handwriting in my head. Still hear her laughing with him. A part of me wanted to storm back into that hotel and cause a scene. Another part just wanted to drive until the road ran out and forget any of this ever happened. But I'm not built that way. I'm the guy who faces things head on. Always have been. Even when it rips me apart inside. The coffee showed up. It tasted like ash, but I drank it anyway. I pulled out my phone and opened our text thread. Still nothing from her. No, where are you? No, I'm sorry. Nothing. She was probably still with him. Probably laughing at something stupid he said. Probably not thinking about me at all. I thumbed over her contact name and stared at the little photo beside it. Sophie smiling in the sun, her hair blowing across her face, her eyes squinting against the light. God, I loved her. Maybe I still did. Maybe that's what hurt the most. I closed the app and shoved the phone face down on the table. An hour passed. Maybe two. The diner emptied out. A few truckers came and went. A family had breakfast for dinner in the corner. I just sat there, nursing cold coffee and trying to figure out who the hell I was supposed to be now. Around 9:30, my phone buzzed. It was a text. From Sophie. Hey babe. Sorry, my phone died. Busy day. You okay? Busy day. I actually laughed out loud. The waitress gave me a sideways look and kept refilling someone's water. Busy day. The words bounced around my head like a bad joke. I didn't answer right away. What was I supposed to say? Yeah, I'm great. Hope your mystery man enjoyed the thank you note. Instead, I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I typed out 3 words. We need to talk. Simple. Cold. Final. I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. Within a minute, the typing bubbles popped up, then disappeared, then came back, then disappeared again. Finally, a reply. Of course. What's wrong? I didn't answer. I paid my bill, left the 20 on the table, and headed back to my truck. The drive home was quiet. The kind of quiet that fills up your head until it's screaming. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark except for the porch light. I sat there for a while, engine ticking as it cooled. Finally, I got out and walked to the front door. It swung open before I could even reach for the handle. Sophie stood there, smiling, wearing the same black dress. Hey, she said brightly, like everything was normal. Where have you been? For a second, I couldn't even speak. I just stared at her, at the woman I thought I knew. We need to talk, I said again, my voice flat. Her smile faltered. Okay, she said slowly, stepping aside to let me in. The house smelled like her perfume. I walked past her into the living room, dropped my keys on the table, and turned to face her. She looked nervous now, tucking a piece of hair behind her ear, shifting from foot to foot. David, what's going on? You're scaring me. I pulled out my phone, opened the photo gallery, and held it out to her. The picture of the note filled the screen. Her face drained of color. She looked at me, opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. Who's he, Sophie? I asked, keeping my voice steady. David, don't lie to me. Tears sprang to her eyes. It was a mistake, she whispered. It didn't mean anything. I shook my head slowly. Mistakes don't leave love notes on hotel stationery. She covered her mouth with her hand, like she could shove the words back inside. Please, she begged. Let me explain. Start explaining then, I said. And so she did. But none of it, not one word, made anything better. Sophie sat down on the edge of the couch, twisting her hands in her lap like a nervous teenager about to confess to breaking curfew. David, she started, her voice small, you have to believe me. I never meant for it to happen. I stayed standing, arms crossed, feeling about 1,000 miles away from her. Who is he? I asked again. She sniffled. His name's Lucas. He's nobody important. Nobody important. I wanted to laugh at how stupid that sounded. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. How long? I asked. She looked at her hands. A few months. I nodded slowly, my jaw tightening. It was just. She stumbled for words. It was just excitement, David. You and I, we've been, comfortable. Routine. Comfortable. like an old shoe. So you decided to find someone new to make you feel alive again, I said flatly. She winced, but didn't deny it. I thought I could just. She trailed off. Just what? Pretend it didn't happen? Keep living under the same roof, playing house while sneaking around behind my back. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't want to hurt you. I stared at her, amazed at how someone could say something so completely backward. Well, I said, you did. We sat there in silence for a long time. Finally, she said, there's something else. I braced myself. Lucas isn't. She paused, swallowing hard. He's not who you think he is. I narrowed my eyes. What's that supposed to mean? She wiped at her tears. He's not some random guy. I didn't meet him at the bar or the gym or anything. Then where? She looked up at me, her eyes wide with fear. You know him, David. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? He's someone from your work. For a second, I couldn't even process what she was saying. From my work? She nodded miserably. Who? She hesitated. Lucas Reed, she said finally. From the project management team. I felt like I'd been punched. Lucas Reed. The new guy. The one I'd trained myself. The one who sat 2 desks down from me every single day. The one who smiled at me in the break room and talked about football. I staggered back a step, like the air had been knocked out of me. You're sleeping with Lucas Reed? She nodded, sobbing now. I turned away from her, trying to catch my breath. This wasn't just betrayal. This was humiliation. This was someone I saw every day, trusted, helped, and the whole time he was sleeping with my wife. David, please, she cried. I didn't mean for it to get this far. It just happened. I didn't plan it. How long? I rasped. Since February, she whispered. 6 months. 6 months of lies. 6 months of fake smiles. 6 months of sitting next to a man who was stabbing me in the back. I turned back to her, feeling something shift inside me. Something cold. Something final. I want you out, I said quietly. She gasped. David, please, we can work through this. No, I cut her off. You made your choice. You chose him. Now live with it. She crumpled, crying harder. But I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. I'll pack a bag, she whispered. Good. I stood there, numb, while she stumbled upstairs to gather her things. I didn't move. I didn't sit down. I just waited. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Lucas Reed thought he could take everything from me. He had no idea what was coming next. After Sophie left that night, 2 duffel bags and a face full of tears, I stood in the doorway for a long time, just staring into the empty street. The silence in the house was deafening. No footsteps upstairs. No clinking dishes in the kitchen. No Sophie humming along to whatever sappy playlist she had running. Just me. And the decision sitting in my gut, heavy as a stone. I wasn't just going to take this lying down. Not with Lucas. Not after everything I'd given to that company. Not after trusting him. There's a line you don't cross. And he crossed it. I spent the next few hours planning. Not ranting. Not punching holes in the walls. Planning. See, the thing about working in construction project management is you learn a lot about people. Their habits. Their weaknesses. And Lucas? Lucas had plenty. By noon the next day, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a steaming mug of coffee, making calls. Quiet calls. Careful ones. Old friends in HR, former coworkers. People who didn't much care for Lucas and his new hotshot attitude. It didn't take long. Turns out, Lucas had been sloppy. There were rumors already. About him fudging numbers on job orders. About missing materials. About misplacing funds from a few site budgets. Nothing proven. Nothing official. But enough smoke to make people nervous. And now? Now there was someone willing to pour gasoline on that fire. I spent 2 days gathering what I needed. Screenshots. Copies of invoices. Chain of custody logs. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just small, deliberate mistakes. Ones that told a bigger story if you knew how to connect the dots. And I did. I built a file. A neat little package. Then I walked into the office on Wednesday morning like it was any other day. Lucas was at his desk when I passed. He had the nerve to flash me that same fake, easygoing smile. Morning, buddy, he said. Buddy. I gave him a nod. Kept walking. Straight to Mr. Harlan's office. The big boss. I knocked once and stepped inside. David, he said, surprised. Everything okay? I shut the door behind me. Not exactly, I said, setting the file down on his desk. He arched an eyebrow. What's this? Something you're going to want to see. I stayed standing while he opened the folder and started reading. Page by page, his face tightened. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and let out a low whistle. "You sure about this?" he asked. "Positive." He closed the folder and tapped his fingers against the cover. "You did the right thing bringing this to me," he said. "We'll handle it." I nodded once. "One more thing," I said as I turned to leave. "Yeah, Lucas Reed," I said, "isn't just cooking the books." Harlan frowned. "What do you mean?" I paused, hand on the doorknob. "Ask him how he knows my wife," I said quietly. Then I walked out. By Friday, Lucas was gone. Not just fired, escorted out of the building by security. Word spread fast. People whispered, speculated. No one said anything to me directly, but I could feel the looks. Some sympathetic, some curious, some just glad the hammer had fallen on someone who deserved it. As for Sophie, she tried texting, calling, leaving voicemails about how she missed me and made a mistake and needed to see me. I didn't answer. Not once. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't anger. It's moving on without looking back. For a few weeks after Lucas got canned, things were quiet. Too quiet. I knew better than to think it was over. Sure enough, one afternoon I got a letter. It was from Sophie's lawyer. She was filing for divorce. And not just that, she wanted the house, half my savings, and spousal support. I sat there reading the letter over a cold sandwich, not even feeling angry. Just tired. Like watching a bad movie you've already seen the ending to. Lucas's name wasn't on the paperwork, but I could smell his fingerprints all over it. I knew how guys like him thought. Fast talk, empty promises, and a whole lot of "trust me, babe." They were probably planning a whole new life financed by me. Problem was, they had no idea what they were up against. See, Sophie and I had a prenup. Nothing fancy. Just something we signed back when we were young and broke, because her dad insisted. At the time, I thought it was pointless. Now it was my shield. I dusted off a copy from my safe and handed it to my lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Karen, who'd been a bulldog in court for 20 years. She smiled when she saw it. "They don't have a case," she said, flipping through the pages like she was reading a children's book. "Good," I replied, feeling the first real spark of relief in weeks. It got better. Turns out, all those small withdrawals Sophie had been making from our accounts, she hadn't covered her tracks as well as she thought. Karen pointed it out in about 2 minutes flat. Community property doesn't include funds stolen behind your back. Meaning everything she'd siphoned off to wine and dine Lucas wasn't just morally wrong, it was legally theirs to answer for. And the house? It was in my name only. Always had been. Bought before we married, with money I'd inherited from my grandfather. Fully protected. They tried to argue emotional contribution or whatever nonsense their lawyer could dream up. Didn't matter. Karen crushed them like bugs. In court, their side looked pitiful. Sophie showed up wearing her best sad victim outfit. All neutral tones, no makeup, hair pulled back like she was starring in some tragic Lifetime movie. Lucas was there too, of course. Sitting 2 rows back, pretending to be just a supportive friend. But I caught the way he glared at me when he thought no one was watching. I didn't glare back. I smiled. Karen laid it out clean and simple. The prenup was ironclad. The withdrawals Sophie made from our accounts, documented and unauthorized. The property? Off limits. When it was their turn, their lawyer stammered through a half-hearted argument about emotional damages and lost opportunities that even the judge looked bored listening to. At one point, the judge leaned over, adjusted his glasses, and asked their side, "Did you not read the prenuptial agreement?" Silence. You could practically hear Sophie's heart shattering into a million tiny desperate pieces. The final ruling came down like a hammer. Sophie got her clothes, her personal items, and a clean break. No house. No savings. No spousal support. Nothing. Lucas had hitched his wagon to a sinking ship. All right. And as they shuffled out of the courtroom, I caught a glimpse of them whisper fighting near the elevator. Sophie's face red, Lucas looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. It almost made me feel sorry for them. Almost. I walked out of that courthouse lighter than I'd felt in months. The sky was bright. The air was crisp. I got into my truck, cranked the radio up, and just sat there for a moment, letting it all wash over me. They had tried to take everything from me. My house. My savings. My dignity. But in the end, all they ended up with was each other. 2 broken people trying to build a life out of the ashes of the one they destroyed. And honestly, that was punishment enough. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I realized something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Freedom. It was finally, truly mine, and I wasn't about to waste it. The first few days after the court ruling felt strange. Quiet, but not the bad kind. The house that once felt like a tomb now felt like a blank slate. There was no more pretending. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. No more living with someone who smiled at me in the morning and lied to me by night. I spent that weekend cleaning. Deep cleaning. Room by room. Not because the house was dirty, but because I needed it to feel like mine again. I scrubbed the kitchen until the counters gleamed. I took down the framed wedding photos, the couple's vacation pictures, every little souvenir from a life that no longer existed. Some I packed away in a box. Some I smashed into a million pieces and threw in the trash. It felt good. Therapeutic. By Sunday afternoon, I was standing in the living room, hands on my hips, looking around at the bare walls and empty shelves, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. This wasn't just a house anymore. It was my home. But as the week went on, and I found myself rebuilding my life, a thought kept creeping into my head. They had tried to take everything from me. They had humiliated me, lied to me, and tried to rob me blind. And they had walked away with nothing. But was that really enough? Some people might have let it go there. I'm not some people. One night, sitting out on my back porch with a beer, watching the stars, I realized I still had one last card to play. And it was a good one. See, Lucas hadn't just been sloppy with his job and his affair. He'd been sloppy online too. Months ago, during a work project, he had emailed me sensitive information about some consulting gigs he had been running on the side. Stuff that, if the company found out, would get him blacklisted from the entire industry. He had sent it from his personal email by accident and followed up with, "Oops, ignore that." I hadn't. Back then, I filed it away and forgot about it. But now? Now it was golden. I spent the next few nights gathering everything I could. Screenshots, old emails, paper trails he didn't even realize he'd left. Then I sent an anonymous package to 3 major construction firms in our area, all companies Lucas had recently applied to. No threats. No accusations. Just a neat bundle of facts. Facts speak louder than revenge fantasies. It didn't take long. A few weeks later, word spread around town. Lucas was unemployable. Nobody wanted to touch him. His side hustles? Gone. His reputation? Shattered. The cherry on top? A buddy of mine, who worked at a private contracting firm, let it slip that Lucas and Sophie were struggling. Turns out, building a new life is tough when neither of you has any real income. Their cute little fresh start dream was crumbling under the weight of unpaid bills and overdue rent. And me? I was thriving. I fixed up my house. I got a promotion at work, thanks to Lucas's seat opening up. I traveled. I started seeing someone new. Slowly. Carefully. Someone kind. Someone honest. Someone who laughed with her whole heart and never once made me feel like I had to look over my shoulder. And best of all, I didn't have to lift a finger to watch karma do its work. Some would call it petty. Maybe it was. But standing there one evening, looking out at the sunset from my freshly painted porch, I felt something deeper than satisfaction. Peace. I hadn't just survived them. I had outgrown them. They tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was a seed. And now? Now I was just getting started.